You know, superhero games throughout the years kind of have gotten a bad rep. Like, I remember when Marvel's Avengers first came out, people were excited for it when it was announced, but when it was officially released, you saw all sorts of hit pieces and hot takes on it, people hating it, people saying it was bad, people saying that the expectations didn't meet the reality. And I'm not going to say the game died on arrival, but months later, people weren't really talking about it as much. Then you had Gotham Knights, which is technically the DC version of Marvel's Avengers. You know, Gotham Knights was another game that was announced that people were excited for. But unlike Marvel's Avengers, the game kind of got flack before it was even released. Throughout multiple leaks and rumors, people's hopes for the game kind of died down before it was even released. Between the revelation of the gameplay and multiple news updates, by the time Gotham Knights came out, a lot of people already had mixed, if not negative, opinions about the game. And then the game's release kind of somewhat solidified that. Hell, from what I've seen, unless it's an Arkham game or a Spider-Man game, superhero games don't really make it like that nowadays. Which is weird because like 10, 12 years back, like we were oversaturated with them. Hell, even with the Arkham games. I remember when Arkham Origins came out, I loved it, but a few years later I found out people didn't. People considered it the worst in the series. People didn't like it as much as City or Asylum. They felt like it was a City copy and paste. Even Arkham Knight, a lot of people didn't like that one either. Well, let me not say that. People liked it, but it had flaws that people vocalized about it. But despite all that, they still love the Arkham game. Same thing with Spider-Man. The point I'm trying to make is we don't get superhero games often nowadays, but when we do, it's normally a hit or miss. And in comes the topic of today's hit or miss. Suicide Squad. Kill the Justice League. Now, this game is funny, right? Because even though it was released last week, it was announced like 3-4 years ago. I don't know when this game was officially supposed to be released, but it kept getting pushed back. I remember when I first saw the trailer, right? It was the announcement trailer. It was more so a teaser. But I liked it. It was fun as hell. It was like, what, 4 or 5 minutes long? And it didn't show too much. It showed you enough for you to get the gist of what was happening. You can see Brainiac's skull ship in the background. You know you're in Metropolis, so you know it's probably an alien invasion that you four have to stop. It was an interesting concept, but as I said, the game kept getting pushed back. We got false release dates, and eventually we ended up getting the game 3 years after the teaser. Now, within this 3 years, between the teaser and the release, this game maintained its hype. See, with Marvel's Avengers, right, the people were hyped for the game, but after we got the teaser and the trailer, I'm not going to say it didn't maintain their momentum, but people kind of stopped talking about it as much until the game released. People were still excited, but no one was really feeding for it. Gotham Knights, I already told you. We got the game's release date, we got the announcement, we got the trailers, and people started hating it slowly and slowly before it came out. Suicide Squad wasn't like that. Within the past 3 years, it's like people have maintained the hype and love they had for it since the day they saw the teaser. Every time I saw an article or a post about it, you look in the comments section and you just see people excited as hell for it. I myself, man, I was extremely excited for this game. Even after releases of Avengers and Gotham Knights and them thinking that it was going to have the exact same playstyle, which it kind of somewhat did, people still wanted to play it. And then we got the release. Yo, let me tell you, I've never seen so many people turn on some shit the way these folks did. It was like the second the game released, all the excitement and hype and momentum people felt for 3 years disappeared. Hell, I take that back. I'll say a day before that, because there was Suicide Squad, but there was also the early release version where you can play the game like 2 days before it came out. And folks hated on this game heavy. You got people talking about what went wrong with Kill the Justice League, everything wrong with Suicide Squad. Kill the Justice League was the worst game of the year. I've heard people say this game was dead on arrival. Y'all get the point of what I'm trying to say, man. People really turned on this game. And I was seeing this like the day of the release of the early access version. And now me, I wasn't about to pay $99 for that shit. You got me fucked up. PlayStation lucky I paid $60 for it. But I waited until the official release of the game, which was the 2nd of February. I woke up early in the morning, I bought the game, I downloaded it before I went off to work so I can play it when I got home. In the entire day, I'm looking at my phone, I'm seeing different people talk shit about this game. I'm thinking, damn man, I think I low-key just wasted $60. Then I get home, I play it, and I'm not gonna lie, I was surprised. I spent the rest of that night playing Suicide Squad. I spent the rest of that weekend playing Suicide Squad. I've been playing this game for like a week straight. And I'm gonna keep it real with y'all, I don't see a lot of the hate y'all are talking about. Well, I'm not gonna sit here and act like this game doesn't have problems, because it does. It has a few, and we're gonna get into it later. But the way people trashed this game when it came out, early release or release date, whichever one you bought, it kind of shocked me after I played the game for myself. Not only am I going to try to explain the story of the game, I'm going to talk about the gameplay, the usual, talk about the problems, but I'm also going to try and make a case for this game because I feel like critics were way too harsh on its release. Let's start with this, alright? Let's start with the story. Now, the game kind of opens up the same way the teaser from 3 years opened up. You have Task Force X, Suicide Squad, in a Brainiac-torn metropolis, right? But it's not necessarily the start of the story, it's more so a tutorial. They give you the basics, but they also give you the opportunity to play as each one of the 4 characters, so you can learn their moveset and find out each and every one of their differences and similarities between each character. After that, they give you the option to choose your team leader. Me personally, I picked Captain Boomerang. Out of all 4 of them, I liked his movements better. That mixed with his own gameplay mechanics, and I like the comedic relief. Now, you play along the mission for a little while. The mission technically ends with the Brainiac Skull ship blasting a beam out of all 4 of you, and then we travel back in time 7 days later. Amanda Waller and her unit set out to Arkham Asylum so they can pick 4 people, the inmates specifically, and create her own team. Said team consists of Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and King Shark. Now, she says she put a bomb in each of their heads, and that she has the detonator in her hand, and she placed it on the table and said only one of you are allowed to make it, and the other 3 are gonna die. Come to find out that was some sort of test. Now, they didn't know that, and she leaves the room, and now we're basically left with these 4, trying to figure out which one of them is gonna be the first to turn and take the shot. And the first to turn was Captain Boomerang. He picked his lock, went for the shot, but then the other 3 get released from their chambers as well. And now we have this funny ass montage of these 4 fighting each other, trying to kill the other in order to get to the shot. I really like this intro. I've said multiple times, an intro can not only dictate the pace of a game, it can also dictate the theme and mood. And I think this intro did a really good job at showing y'all the theme of the game. That obviously the situation is serious, but the people who are in charge of dishing it out aren't as serious. They're villains, so expect treachery. They're also comic book characters, so expect some comedy. And you also kind of have the feeling of, okay, these 4 are going to be responsible for taking out the Justice League. Yeah, we're fucked. I like the tone of the game. You're leaving the fate of the world in a group of criminals. It's a funny concept. Now, as I said, it was a test. Waller came out, and I guess they passed? I don't fucking know. They weren't clear. But their first official mission as a team is to break into the Hall of Justice. Now, this was pretty cool. This is technically the second mission, but it was pretty cool. I mean, for a brief moment, you can just take a step back and look at each character. And by character, I mean members of the Justice League. Look at their holograms, look at their weaponry, and listen to the audio logs. It's like a DC museum. Each hologrammed Justice League member gives a background of their origin and why they do what they do. And I liked it because you don't really get this moment later on in the game. This is more so like a smell the roses now thing, because a couple missions later, Waller comes in and replaces everything with military equipment. So it's best to enjoy the Justice League museum moment while you can. And this is where we get to the weapons and outfits. They find a wall full of Justice League weapons, and they steal it. Captain Boomerang, he's a Flash villain, so he steals the Flash's weapons. Harley Quinn, she steals Batman's weapons, along with Deadshot and King Shark. So now we have the gadgets that we use throughout the game. You unlock more, but this is what you're given so far. And you're set out to roam Metropolis and complete missions for Waller. And so far, I'm loving Metropolis. I've always kind of thought to myself, I wonder what an Arkham game would look like during the day. Obviously, that could never work, alright? It's Batman. He's the knight. But in this one, it's fun because you get to roam the streets of Brainiac-controlled Metropolis throughout the daytime, Arkham style. And throughout, you run into characters like Green Lantern and Batman. Also, before I forget, Green Lantern and Deadshot got very serious beef. Like, every chance they get throughout this game to diss each other, they take it, and I'm here for it. We're gonna fast forward like a mission. Something happens like 20 minutes from now, but I'm gonna get into it later. Fast forward, they get back to the Hall of Justice. They fail to take in Batman. They get their asses handed to them by Wonder Woman. And then eventually they end up getting their outfits for the rest of the game. Now, not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say the beginning was slow due to like the gameplay and action, but it was slow more so on the when are we getting our stuff? When do we start looking like the characters we saw in the trailers? That doesn't really happen till like what, an hour into it, but once it finally happens where we get all of our gadgets and outfits together, it feels worth it. Now, with all their stuff in hand, these four are tasked with taking down the Justice League, side missions included. Now, so far that's the beginning of the story, right? And me personally, I liked it. The intro and so far the game, I've been liking all of it. The story is wild as hell, but I kind of expected it to be wild due to the characters and what they're supposed to do. But so far, I'm liking the story. This game features a lot of, I'm not going to say a lot, but it features cameos throughout the DC universe. You know, people like Lois Lane, Gizmo, not teenage Gizmo from Teen Titans, he's an adult in this one. The Riddler makes an appearance, not physically, but he's around. The Penguin makes an appearance. Black Mask gets name dropped. There's cameos here and there. Now, some of said cameos don't play that much of a part into the game as in story. A few of them do, but whether or not they do, I think you're gonna like them. Now we can get into the gameplay. I think the gameplay is the best part about this game. It's a third-person shooter, but it's not your typical third-person shooter. Don't think of it as like a Gears of War or a Max Payne. Think of it as like a Sunset Overdrive type of third-person shooter. There's a lot of movement, a lot of aerial attacks, you don't really spend too much time on the ground. You are constantly surrounded by enemies, constantly moving to avoid gunfire, constantly countering, whether it's foot soldiers, tanks, helicopters, snipers, you are always on the go. This is an extreme running gun, and I love it. It is pure chaos. Now, as long as you're not on a mission, you can switch between characters at any time. So while you're in the middle of a firefight with who knows how many people, you can switch between each character, try out their variety of weapons, try out their super moves, their suicide strikes. It's so much fucking fun. That's another thing. Each character has their own special move. Think of it as like the specials in Injustice, but they hit a fuck ton more people. Like, my personal favorite is Boomerangs, because he has the Speed Force that he stole from Flash's section in the Hall of Justice. He basically teleports between each enemy in range and attacks them one by one within the span of like 5 to 10 seconds. It looks cool as hell, both ground and aerial. Now, for King Shark, you need to be aerial for you to do it. So after you get enough height, you can press the special moves button, and then he basically has this Hulk smash like super move where he just soars down into the ground like a meteor and destroys everything in sight. Each character has their own special move, has their own way of doing it. Well, King Shark has his own way of doing it. Deadshot, Harleys, and Boomerangs you can technically do at any time, but they're all so cool to look at, and they do a fuck ton of damage. And you're not stuck with the same weapons while you play. You unlock different weapons and mods throughout missions or looting patrols. Not any patrols, they have to be Lootenauts, which you'll learn if you play this game. And you can also buy weapons at Penguin's gun shop. And by buy, I mean you have enough materials to craft them, but you also have to pay him money in order to craft it. It's a process, but it's worth it, depending. And the movement system goes hand in hand with the combat. Each character has their own form of movement. Deadshot, he has a jetpack. It lags after you raise the meter too high, but you can restart it. Deadshot. Captain Boomerang has the Speed Force. So what he does is he uses his boomerang. He throws it like far as hell, and then he zips to where the boomerang is. He can also technically teleport due to the Speed Force, but it's more so him just running mad fast. But from the screen, it looks like teleportation. Harley grapples a bat drone that she stole from the Hall of Justice, and you can use it twice in a row with a little lag in between. But for the most part, she plays like she would in an Arkham game, but not as quick. She can grapple from ledges and tops of buildings. That's unlimited. The bat drone has a meter like the other ones, and she can overshoot at the top when she hits the tip of it. Out of all four of the characters, she plays more like an Arkham character. And King Shark jumps. That's it. He jumps. He jumps high as hell, and he jumps far as hell. It's really that. Each character, aside from the guns, feel different than one another. Actually, no, guns included. There's some of them who can use assault rifles, some of them can't. Some use pistols, others don't. Others specialize in snipers, others don't. They all kind of play different from one another. All of that go hand in hand to make the gameplay of Kill the Justice League, and I loved it. The super moves were great, the suicide strikes were great. The suicide strikes, they're kind of like super moves, but not as strong. They do a fuck ton of damage too, but not as much as the super moves. It's like a quick 3 to 4 second move that you can do on a singular enemy and that enemy only. It's like a quick kill or an execution. I think the gameplay is the best part of this game. It looks like they took a lot of time working on it. That, along with the story. The story is, how you feel about it is debatable, but I think the gameplay is great. Now we're going to get into the criticisms. Something I don't like about this game, right? This is a DC comic book adaptation. And despite being a DC comic book adaptation, with both characters coming from comics that range among decades, they are lacking in the outfit department. In the store, you only get like 1 or 2 extra outfits, but even then you have to pay for them. Which is kind of dumb, because it's like, this is a superhero game, right? Technically a superhero game. You would think you could use in-game currency, which you get a fuck ton of, by the way, to pay for either outfits or new outfits that they can drop in the game off release, but they didn't. But instead, so far, we have these 1 or 2 classic outfits that you can only use real-life money to get. And the reason why I say real life money, because even though the currency is technically in-game, the currency that you use to get said costumes, you have to pay for. I don't like that. I don't mind in-app purchases if it makes sense, but in this one, it didn't make sense. And it doesn't help that those are the only costumes that you have, which is ones that you have to pay for. I like the outfits that they have now. Like, I don't have a problem with them. They're fine. I just wish we had more. Another thing, at times, there's a couple missions that get a little repetitive. Now, I kind of somewhat expected that with this being a looter shooter, but at times it's very noticeable. Like, for example, those missions where you have to collect 3 or 4 civilians that are pinned down by enemies and you have to bring them to a bus. You do that for 3 separate people. You do that for Gizmo, you do that for Stag, you do that for the Penguin. It gets repetitive. Not that repetitive to the point where I hate the game for it. I still have fun playing it. I just wish they did more. Not necessarily with like the missions that we have story-wise, but more so the side quests. I think my final criticism on this game, I don't understand. People keep saying that this is attached to the Arkham games. Like this is a spin-off or a continuation. And I'm pretty sure they're right. And if so, that makes no fucking sense. Other than, let's say, Harley Quinn, there's no real attachment between this game and the Arkham series. There is a mission though that, this is the Batman mission I was telling you about. Wait, oh fuck, I didn't tell you about that yet. Hold on, give me a second. There's a mission where you have to capture Batman in the beginning and bring him back to the Hall of Justice. Y'all fail, and the way they do it is so cool. Remember the Predator missions in the Arkham games? They took that, but they reversed it. Rather than you playing as Batman and hunting down the unsuspecting victims in the darkness, you're the unsuspecting victims. You're the unsuspecting victim, and he's the Batman. And it's cool because I don't know if they took this from one of the Arkham games, but the soundtrack, the music that plays in the background, it makes it feel like even more of a Predator mission. It's dark as hell, there's red lights blinking in the corner, you have a flashlight attached to your gun, that's the only way you can see, and right when you think you're about to get out, boom, the Batman gets your ass. It was fun, it was interesting, and I liked their take on it. Anyway, the reference I was referring to was, it was technically like a Batman museum. So they have these rooms where they showcase Batman's events in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City in deep detail. Like that scene in Arkham City where Two-Face had Catwoman hung up and he was holding her for trial. They took that and they put that in some sort of interactive display at a museum. And they go into deep detail about the events of Arkham City. But other than that and Harley Quinn, this game has nothing to do with the Arkham games. I think they just said that hoping it would sell more, but in my opinion, I think it raised people's expectations higher than it should have been. I don't know what people thought this game was going to be, hearing that this was attached to the Arkham series, but whatever it was, it didn't come out the way it was supposed to. Those are just my personal criticisms. Other than that, I still really like the game. Now we're going to get into other people's criticisms, the critics. I believe that critics were way too harsh on this game. The way people treated this shit when it first came out, they made it seem like it was the worst drop of the year. The year just started. Now don't get it twisted, I'm not saying this game is going to be game of the year, but at the same time, the way folks dragged this shit, it was wild. Now, I have an opinion, right? I think a lot of the people who bash this shit, at least on the internet, I don't think a lot of them either played the game or played the game for long. Because here's a few of the criticisms I heard, right? One of the criticisms I heard was the boss fights were repetitive and boring. Like each boss fight was the same as the last. Yeah, no. Now, technically, the first boss fight you have is like a Brainiac cannon, right? And I'm not gonna lie, that one was kind of lame. I mean, it was okay. You had to figure out your own way in order to defeat it. You had to get like brain matter from fallen soldiers and use it to bomb certain parts of the cannon in order to take it down. It was kind of lame. Out of all the boss fights I played, I think that was the weakest. But then you get to the Flash boss fight. After having multiple encounters with him throughout the game, you finally get the chance to fight him. And that's after you get some sort of anti-speed force device that was made in order to take him down. You use it to slow him down, not to the point where he's running like you and me, but slow enough to the point where you can get a bullet on him. That shit was fun. Not just because, you can slow him down while he's trying to speed away, but mostly because of what he does to counter it. He's creating speed tornadoes and hurricanes. He's shooting lightning at you. He's zipping by before you can even get a shot in. You really feel like you're in a boss fight against the Flash. Granted, you had an advantage to take him down, but it still felt genuine. And I liked it. To me, it was fun. And then after that, you had the Green Lantern boss fight a few missions later, which was completely different than the hand cannon boss fight and the Flash boss fight. This one was a lot more aerial. With the Flash boss fight, you low-key had to like track him in order to take him down and wait for him to stop for you to shoot at the right moment. For this one, Green Lantern creates sea bombs, planes, helicopters, miniguns, sniper rifles. And they all come in like huge loads, and you have to divert them or escape from them or counter them or run so you can get a shot in. And you can't even get a shot into him because he's in a shield. You have to destroy them first before you can get to him. And just like the Flash fight, this felt like a Green Lantern boss battle. Bro was calling in Call of Duty kill streaks like it was nothing. But just like they used the anti-speed force for Flash, they had to use a device made with Yellow Lantern rings in order to defeat Green Lantern. So they didn't necessarily make it easy for you, but the way you defeat him does kind of make sense. Those are like the first 3 boss fights so far. Then after that, you have to fight Batman. And I'm gonna keep it real with y'all, I don't think any of these boss fights reflect or copy the other. I think this is a good way for me to describe it. These boss fights in the game itself is like Batman's contingency plans for the Justice League come to life. Only difference is it's not Batman doing it, it's a group of misfit supervillains who can barely work together properly. And I think they utilized that idea well. So I didn't understand the whole each boss fight felt exactly the same comment that I've heard from people on the internet. I mean, yeah, it's just bullets, guns, and explosions you use to take them down, but the way you do it and the way the boss fights go out are completely different. Another criticism I heard, and this is from like people in the comment section of some video I watched, I heard people say that each character plays exactly like Deadshot, so there's no point in switching characters. No, that's not true. Other than them having guns, each and every one of these characters play different from one another. Whether it's their special moves, the way they travel, their melee combinations, their suicide strikes, they're all different from one another. When you're playing as Captain Boomerang, it doesn't feel like you're playing as Deadshot. When you're playing as Deadshot, it doesn't feel like you're playing as Harley Quinn. Same thing with Harley Quinn versus King Shark, they play completely different. Captain Boomerang plays like a teleporting madman with a boomerang attached to the hip. Deadshot plays like a jetpack wielding mercenary with hand cannons attached to his wrists. Harley Quinn plays like an acrobatic with a mallet on her back. And King Shark plays like a powerhouse with 2 machetes attached to the side. And depending on who you play as, the strength versus speed of each attack varies. Harley Quinn, out of all of them, I think her attacks are the slowest, but that's because it does the most damage because he has a mallet. With Deadshot, it's a lot more distance because of his hand cannons. Boomerang too, sort of, but not as much as Deadshot, because instead of hand cannons, Boomerang uses a boomerang to attack his opponent, but it's like a teleporting boomerang due to the speed force. And King Shark uses 2 machetes that he dual wields against enemies, but for him it's more like a dive or a lunge. These characters feel different from one another, both personality wise and gameplay. They're all pretty funny. I mean, they all count as comedic relief, but I'd put that more on Boomerang's side and maybe Harley Quinn's. Deadshot's at the most serious out of all of them, but he still cracks here and there. King Shark, he's funny, but he's kind of dense compared to the other 3. This game, well, no, more so the characters it provides. It feels different. They all feel different from one another. I'm not telling you to go out and pay $70, $60, or $50 for this game. I'm not saying that. Do I think this is a $60 worth game? Not really. Me personally, I'd pay $40, $45 for it. But I don't feel like I wasted my money either. I really enjoyed playing this game, and I'm going to continue to enjoy playing this game. I feel like a lot of the criticisms that this game has had has been either exaggerations or extremely high expectancy. I think a lot of people probably expected this game to be a lot more serious and detailed than it was, which I don't understand. As I said, this is a game about a group of misfit supervillains who are tasked with taking down the Justice League, and 2 out of those supervillains are Harley Quinn and Captain Boomerang. I did not expect to take this story as that serious. I was expecting to take it as serious as I did Sunset Overdrive. You know, Sunset Overdrive was a fun game, but it was also goofy as hell. That's what I thought this game was going to be. And at times it was pretty goofy, but it was a lot more serious than I gave it credit for. But for me personally, the expectations I had for the game, it pretty much fit it. I didn't expect it to be anything more. I didn't expect it to be anything less. I personally loved it. Okay, no, love is a strong word. I like the game. I really like the game. I think that's the issue. I think because this game has been pushed back for so long, and it's been 3 years since we got an official announcement from the game, I think people hyped it up so much within the 3 years that when they finally got it, they did not meet the expectations that they set for it. And because of the high hopes that they had for it, it probably felt worse than what it actually was. Because look at it like this. I look at I look at DC's Kill the Justice League the way I do Marvel's Avengers and Gotham Knights. They all kind of play the same. You have a group of 4 who complete various missions, both side quests and main missions, across a certain ranged map. That's between Avengers, Gotham Knights, and Suicide Squad. Out of all 3, because they all technically they have the same game style in my opinion. I think out of all 3, Suicide Squad does it the best. I was hyped for it a lot more than I was Avengers and Gotham Knights, and I liked it a lot more than I did Avengers and Gotham Knights. And I'm not telling you to go out and praise it. I'm not trying to make it seem like this game is Game of the Year, because it isn't. Especially with some of the upcoming games we have this year. I'm just saying it wasn't as bad as people try to make it seem. And if you want to have your own opinion, I suggest you do that and play it yourself. Whether you can get it on sale, get it off of a friend, do whatever. I say go out and try to play the game yourself. But this is just my opinion. This is what I think. I'm no different than all the other critics. All this is just my opinion. But that's all I got for y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Reggie TV. For the ones who've played Suicide Squad, let me know how y'all feel. Do y'all think the critics exaggerated it? Did you like the game? Did you love the game? Do you think the game's gonna be Game of the Year? I don't know, man. It's all up to y'all. Y'all entitled to y'all opinions the way I'm entitled to mine. We'll see what happens. But for now, this is all I got for y'all. I appreciate y'all for watching Reggie TV, and I'm out.